Okay, so I was reading in section 59 of the Doctrine and Covenants the other day, and there's a ton in there. But with it being Thanksgiving tomorrow, these verses jumped out. There's verses in there where the Lord's talking to us about keeping the Sabbath day holy and making sure that we're, fasting and being prayerful with singleness of heart. And he said, verily, this is fasting and prayer, or in other words, rejoicing in prayer. And inasmuch as you do these things with thanksgiving, with cheerful hearts and countenances, not with much laughter, for this is sin, but with a glad heart and a cheerful countenance. Verily I say that inasmuch as you do this, the fullness of the earth is yours, the beasts of the field and the fowls of the air, and that which climbeth upon the trees and walketh upon the earth. And a little further down it says, and nothing doth man offend God, or against none is his wrath kindled, save those who confess not his hand in all things, and obey not his commandments. So gratitude, for the commandments and for what Heavenly Father has given us, and as what He calls the fullness of the earth, is pretty impressive. So I thought that was fitting and applicable to Thanksgiving time.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, well, let's do a prayer so we don't miss out on that. I can offer it, or you can offer it if you want, Courtney. You say.
You can offer it.
I will do that.
Thank you.
Yep. Heavenly Father, grateful to meet together during this office hour. Thankful to discuss principles that we're learning in class. And for Courtney joining, and for any who might join or be watching through the YouTube link or watching the recording, please bless us to learn and grow and receive instruction from one another and also from Thy Spirit as we learn about human resources and the things that we are discussing. We love Thee and we are thankful for all that we are given, and say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Well, have you met with your group yet, Courtney?
I have. You did this morning.
Excellent. So how did the negotiation go?
Well, it was kind of up in the air, and then a couple of people had to leave early, so they were like, well, I don't care what you do, just let me know.
Yeah.
And we actually got to a conclusion before one of them had to leave, and
Okay.
it was to make it the wage at like $9.50 an hour, and possibly every quarter do a review to see how they've been doing.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So lots of little talking points and different factors in that negotiation, right? So at face value, it seems like an easy thing. It's like, oh yeah, we'll just agree on something, but
Yeah.
it doesn't necessarily go that way, right?
Correct. And we were all trying to do like, well, how was it back in the 70s? Like back in that time, because some of us weren't even alive. Like me,
Yeah.
I was 85. I was like, how would I know?
Yeah, it's true. It's a setback a little bit further in the past.
Yeah.
So in your experience with it, what were some of the challenges or barriers that you had to overcome in order to get to some sort of conclusion?
Well, it was trying to find an equal ground with the others in my team, like describing whether we were on part of like the Baxter papers or the 190 paper.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was like, okay, well, we've got this one. And then they were like, well, but we understand that, but what about this? The other group from my paper wanted to decrease down to like $9 an hour.
Right, they wanted to decrease in wage.
Yeah. And me and the person I had, we figured out that the teams that were dropping 40%, they would be dropping down to like, around $6 an hour or so, which would be like team level E, or firm E, which was $7. We're like, no, but see, cost of living probably maybe a little more than that. I mean, and who knows if they have kids or not.
Right.
So
That's substantial, a 40% decrease.
yeah, that's like $1 to almost $2. You know, $1.67. I remember the numbers now. It was like 176. I remember, but
Huh.
yeah, it was just like they would take a larger pay cut than if they went to a different firm.
Yeah, that's interesting. And you know, I always tend to think about what we talked a little bit about last week when you're talking about compensation.
Yeah,
When there's these negotiations in play, it's always, hey, what can we do? And they always look at labor. They always look at labor costs and labor rates. Well, more so labor rates, right? So the rate of pay. But did you discuss any other type of options?
well, it was basically I was just focused like on the wage
Mm-hmm.
the whole time. Like, well, like, well, but you got to think about this. And I tried to take over the charts and like compare. And I was like, well, but if this is this much and the net pay is only this, where's the extras going to come into play?
Right. And what side were you on again?
I was on the Baxter side.
Baxter side. Okay. Right. So yeah, you do get focused on that wage, but the other side who wanted to cut the wage, you know, there's other things to look at
Yeah,
besides just the wage. You look at the company itself. You know, they were turning a profit. They weren't a failing company.
yeah.
You know, so why harm the employees directly by harming their pay?
Yeah.
So
Well, like I think I brought up possibly like healthcare is probably within there as well.
yeah,
So they may be cutting part of that, or they may be adding more. If you increase the wage, they will be possibly hitting a higher point of being able to allow additional compensations within insurance.
yeah. So yeah, healthcare, insurance coverages that they're offering, benefits to the employees. Yeah, looking at the total compensation.
Yeah.
Yeah, good call. What did you learn about unions this week? Any questions or?
I learned that I've never worked for a union and I don't want to.
Right. I've never had to work for a union. I've had family that have worked in unions, and yeah, I think it's a matter of opinion of if you want to work for one or not. I'm with you. I don't, but um, in certain industries, I think it does good things. hmm What do you think the purpose of unions are? Why do you think they happened or happen?
I think they were to make all employees, on like an equal playing field,
hmm
where no one was higher than the other.
Right. And does it work?
No, I don't believe it does.
Um, yeah, I mean, overall, it might not. There's times when it might not, and times when it might. I guess I guess in our reading, looking for positive experiences with it. What good do you think they do accomplish? Devil's advocate. So if you had to work for a union or be a union rep, what would you say to advocate for a union?
I would say that for people who are like lower um, municipal wise or whatever, that the union could be beneficial. It could bring them up to par with everyone else, make them better equals.
Yeah, so you're saying it could help the frontline workers,
Yeah.
creating opportunity for them. Yeah.
Yes.
I agree with that. I think that is exactly the premise of a union. If you look in the history of the unions, unions came around right about the time or before the time that labor laws were all in place. So people were working 16, 17 hours a day. People were getting hurt or killed on the job. people weren't getting paid enough. They,
Yet their other things cost more than they're getting paid,
hmm
like medical bills. Who knows?
exactly.
Who knows? They had a member with cancer or something.
Right. Yeah. So all of that kind of started to unfold, and protecting worker rights became an issue. So the unions would go in there to support the employees.
Yeah,
So you mentioned you don't want to work for a union. Why not? What's the negative side you see?
I don't feel like my personal talents and abilities will be recognized, or my hard work won't be recognized if we're all on the same playing field.
Oh, okay. So it's harder to be an individual.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody kind of gets equalized, which means we don't get that clear notice or that opportunity. Even though it's advocating for it, sometimes it limits it.
Yeah, like getting with their condition.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point. One of the other things that can happen with unions, this isn't, and it's not a totally negative thing, but something that can happen is the unions get too big or too powerful.
And
So
it's spread over the U.S.
what's
And
that?
it's spread all over the U.S. and the United States.
Yeah.
And certain areas can have completely different demographics than another area, whether it's environmental, getting sick, or land costs, housing.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. You could have unions across different parts of a region that has different demographics, different problems, different issues.
Yeah,
So the union, trying to speak for one area could actually be hurting another part of the area.
yeah,
Yep, that's true. Um, and then the wages. So they'll fight for wages and things like that. But also, what can happen is wages can get seriously inflated.
yeah,
You want to keep market value, but what happened? An example of that is in the auto industries. Years back, there was some bailouts with the auto industries, um, and I think just a frontline assembly line worker that put on steering wheel on cars was making like $80,000 a year through
wow,
the union. And so, it's no wonder these companies couldn't financially perform
yeah.
because they
They were
were,
they were going in the hole rather than staying equal.
yeah, yep. So that can happen in unions too.
Yeah.
Um, so what about general things in a company when a union is involved? Like how can it affect communication, do you think, or resolving a complaint or a concern or an issue?
I think within like a communication, they they're all on equal level. So no one's like I used to work at Arby's fast food.
Mm-hmm.
I started at the grunt, doing the worst jobs. By the time I left, I was the lead supervisor.
Cool.
So I think I worked my way up there, but I gained more respect as I was pushed up position wise.
Yeah, and you had that opportunity.
Yeah.
And so what happens so in a company that's unionized, a lot of times if there's a complaint, you don't go to your manager or you don't go to the HR manager. You have to go to the union rep. And then
Yeah.
the union rep takes the complaint to the HR manager.
Yeah.
And,
Personally,
yeah.
I highly dislike that. I'm like, I want to be a part of it. I want to be involved in all aspects of anything that concerns me. That
Right.
interests me, being selfish.
Right. So it does limit the individual voice. It does help the collective voice, so that can be helpful. But as far as communicating for the individual, it can slow things down.
Yeah, and no one becomes unique.
hmm Yeah, it really can slow things down. So as far as processes in the company, accomplishing communication or getting a complaint resolved can take a long time.
Yeah.
Uh, on the other hand, it can protect employees, so it offers really good job protection. It's if somebody is up to get terminated, it has to go through the union. rather than through an HR director or just a manager's decision.
Yeah.
So kind of interesting. And if you go back east, there's a lot of union activity. There's some everywhere, even here in the West, but there's a lot going on with it back east. And you do have the collective bargaining that happens with the wages, kind of like our exercise. You have companies that go on strike sometimes while those negotiations are happening, and it's just a whole different ballgame. Pretty interesting. Something to mention on this too is there's a board called the National Labor Relations Board. Have you heard of that before?
No, a lot I haven't heard of. Yes,
Yeah, the NLRB. So if you hear about the NLRB, that's what it is. It's the National Labor Relations Board, and their role is to protect employees' rights to unionize, right, and to work together. So they have a lot of those regulations because they're legally, employees can get together and do that. And as of the last 5 years, there's been a lot of updates and regulations from the NLRB about social media. So you often see people on Facebook saying, "Hey, I don't like this about my job," or whatever, and then you have people replying to it and say, "Yeah, I agree." And sometimes you have people getting fired for that. Well,
that's why now in my little area, my zone of family and whatever, there are companies that do not want them on their Facebook at all.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
check and see if they're on Facebook.
Right. So companies have policies about it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep, and that's fine. Companies can have those policies, but if they don't, and employees are online and kind of gathering together online, it's considered protected activity, union protected activity. So anything that's discussing about work, and also in the workplace or wherever, employees can also be protected when they're talking about wages. They're talking about their pay.
Yeah.
We can't tell people not to talk about that. So pretty interesting how that works.
Welcome, Maria.
Oh, hi.
Welcome.
Hi.
Thanks for joining. Courtney and I were just talking a little bit about the positives and drawbacks of unions.
Ah, yes.
So, and she talked a little bit about how the group discussion went as far as the negotiation exercise. So.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we did ours. It was a little confusing at first what we were supposed to do. And then my group, I was one of the team leaders, and I was the team leader for the union, Local 190. And for some reason, we couldn't get the Google to videotape. We were having troubles with that. We were even having troubles linking on with each other. Each one of us was coming in and out constantly. We finally were able to all three get together and discuss for a little bit, but we were not successful in recording ours end of it. I think the other group was able to record though.
Okay, well that's good. Yeah, I think you're not the only group that had trouble with the
We've
Google.
never had that kind of trouble before. We've always been able to have, be able to get all together and do it. And for some reason, last night it was really hard.
Well, that's too bad.
I tried 2 or 3 times to get it started, but it was okay. We finally got it, and it was just a long night.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if I was going to make it because I just came back from a wedding. We're out of town right now, and I said, well, we'll see.
Oh, well, we appreciate it. I know it's a busy time, so.
Yeah.
Well, good. Well, thanks for sticking through it. So I asked Courtney what she thought about unions, and she said she wouldn't want to work for one. What about you, Maria? Do you work for a union, or have you worked for unions, or?
No, I've never worked for a union.
Okay.
I know there's pluses and minuses for it, but I don't know if I would really want to work for a union either. But I understand it's a kind of a necessity, I guess, that's what you want to call it.
It can be, and I think definitely in certain industries you see that. So here in Pocatello, we've got a lot of railroad workers.
Oh yeah.
There's a railroad union. There's electrician unions. A lot of the industrial type industries have unions. So yeah, I'm the same way. I think there's things that unions do limit, but it's that balance, and this is what Courtney and I talked about, that balance of protecting the employees as a whole versus not letting the individual have a voice.
Right.
Sense. So.
Well, up here we have Kaiser.
And remind, where are you at? Are you in California?
I'm in Spokane.
Oh, Spokane. Okay. Are they union?
They were, I believe.
Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, all kinds of industries. So that would be healthcare. So one of the drawbacks for me that I was mentioning, Maria, is how it kind of slows processes. So if I have a complaint, I can go to my manager or I can go to the HR manager.
Right.
In a union, if you have a complaint, you go to the union boss, and then they go to the HR manager. So, and speak for the whole employee base.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some, slows processes. So we've been trying to talk about both sides.
Right.
On the positive side, Maria, what do you think unions can accomplish, or what good can they do?
Well, I think it helps the worker, I guess, not to be taken advantage of, for one, I think. I think kind of it helps the industry to have I guess a base rate amongst an industry. You kind of can rely on that. Whether you're a union or not, you kind of rely on, well, what are those unionized companies, basing their pay rate, so that they can kind of figure out what's going out there in that industry. I think too, I don't know. Yeah, I guess I think about the workers that, like railroad or the coal mines and things like that, where it's really a lot of hard work. It's a lot of labor into it. And I don't know, I guess just thinking about in those day and ages, I think it really protected those workers, on the safety end, and making sure that, that little man was not forgotten, and taken care of, because basically they're just trying to make a living, and not have the big corporations kind of take advantage of those workers. And I think that's what I kind of got out of this particular reading, was finding, in the past where they were, kind of a family-oriented, company, that with that union, they kind of helped each other. They whenever there was a profit, they shared it with the workers. And that's not always the case when you're out in just the real world. They're not really looking out for everyone. It's just, I think about the jobs that I've had in the school district, and being a parent liaison, I was funded by Title I fundings, but the school district wasn't going to supplement anything. So basically I was being low man on the totem pole. And now I've got you know, I left that job, went on to being a secretary, and then went on to another job that I just started, and I'm making more money than I ever did as a parent liaison in 5 years there as a parent liaison. And I'm doing a whole lot less work than I did as a parent liaison.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and yeah, that's kind of interesting. And you think, you know, sometimes you think something's not right in this picture. You would think that the harder you work, the more you would be rewarded for that. But it's not always the case in the real world. And I don't know, maybe unions do kind of help that in that sense, in making sure that everybody is on an equal plane, per se, and that you're not lost in that shuffle.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. Yeah, that working for equality, and that's one of the first things Courtney mentioned too, was that effort for equality. That's a good thing. And yeah, your comment about, hey, something is not right here. If more people are feeling that, and the collective is feeling that, I think that's kind of what spawns a union.
Yeah.
So the history of them goes a long ways, and it's interesting. Sometimes the unions do those great things, and for the most part work out. Other times, sometimes they get big and they get too powerful, if you ask me. But they do have a purpose.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's I haven't worked for a union either. In fact, my company, we do annual training about union awareness to try to prevent that type of activity coming into the workplace, so that we can secure the voice for the individual and keep things closer together. But that's just the philosophy of the company I work for. You know, it's not anti-union, it's just kind of a union awareness type training that we do. So everywhere you go, you get a little bit different approach.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking of the word union, and of course the close root word, or the close word with the same root, would be unity or unite. And so I think there might be some things we can pull away from that. And Maria, you mentioned some of that, how the people kind of end up helping each other, and in a strong union. I have seen that. I have seen people kind of wear their, they wear their jackets from work with their union insignia on it, and they wear it with pride. And there's some unity there that we can benefit from. So what comes to mind when I mention that word unity?
Well, in my thought process, it comes as like working as a team, like a basketball team, a hockey team, a baseball team. Like every player has a different part, a different position. No player is better than the others. It's just they have to work together to make a whole.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think it also symbolizes a little bit of strength behind that. You know that it's much like, you hear about having a bundle of sticks. One stick, you could easily break it. 2 sticks might be a little more difficult. You get 3 sticks together, it's going to be even more difficult. And the more that you have, the harder it is to break. And so you've got that unity and that strength there to help one another, in your job, in your position, and hopefully you have that strength throughout the whole company.
Maria, as you say that, the thought of the flaxen cord going around your neck for Satan is the same kind of thing. Like one flaxen cord strand is fine, but the more you add, the tighter a grip Satan has on you. So it's harder to get out of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. We learned that in the scriptures.
Yeah.
Well, I like it. So yeah, Courtney, you've mentioned teamwork, and then Maria brings up strength. And, a union, you can see elements of that in their efforts to kind of bring that forward. Yeah, the stick analogy, I remember that as well. That's awesome. What about from a gospel point of view, or a church point of view, or family? How does the Lord feel about unity?
Marriage.
Okay.
Yeah. marriage, family.
Work for the dead.
Mhm.
Say it again.
Temple work for the dead.
Oh, temple work. Yeah. Yes, that's good.
Yep.
Yeah. So when you mention those things, we are not. I used to say this at work all the time to our new hires, and do often still. Says we're not. None of us are successful by ourselves, right?
Right.
So family. We weren't born as individuals. We were born into members of a family
You're
at some level.
you're two parts of two others.
Yeah. Yeah. So, we ideally, the family is the proper setting, and there's different setups. There's large families, small families, single parent families, you name it. It's all variants, but we weren't sent here by ourselves. And so that thought has always come to mind, and it came to mind when you guys mentioned that. Marriage, we can't be successful in our families or create a family without a marriage, or at least be effective. In the eternal scheme of things, marriage we know is eternally important, right? Yeah, so that's great. I'm looking in Doctrine and Covenants, section 38. It says, "I say unto you, be one, and if you're not one, you're not mine." So temple work, Courtney mentioned. Yeah, we go to the temple. We wear white clothes. We're all equal in the temple, right? We're the same. We're children of God doing work for
Children of God.
God. Say it again. Sorry.
There's other children of God.
For other children of God. Yeah. There's no hierarchy there, right?
We're all one family.
Yep. So the gospel has a lot to teach us about that, and the effort to building Zion happens in families, communities, stakes, wards, and as a church. So pretty cool.
Yeah.
The nice thing about it is we don't have to work through the mortal way. We do unions. We don't have a union boss. We have priesthood leaders. We have things like that, but the setup is more appropriate, right?
Yeah.
So just in general, asking a question to kind of dive into that, how do we increase or strengthen unity? And that can be at work or at home or in a team or whatever. Are there any things that feed into unity?
Finding common ground.
Oh, okay, common ground. So you mentioned that before when we were talking about negotiating, right? Finding the common areas.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Anything else? Any experiences where you've been with a group that was not united and you saw it unite, or vice versa?
Well, I think a lot of times like when we had, all of these disasters that happened, like for instance, the tornadoes that we had in Oklahoma area, and, people united all over the areas from Texas and surrounding states, and many of them were LDS groups that went to go and help clean up and help. So, I think that's a good thing. We drop everything to help our fellow man when there's a definite need.
Yeah,
I think
that's amazing.
also about our family wards. If ever there's anyone who is ever in need. I mean, we've had a couple of times where there were some newborn children that were really, really sick, and we united together to fast for those families. So there's a lot of opportunities and a lot of things that happen throughout our lives, whether it's at work or in our own families or within our wards, that the Lord gives us opportunities to unite and to help and be part of that. I mean, even the church has the Just Serve program that, encourages us to get out there and to help our communities, because He knows that when we do unite and help, the burden is lifted up even more.
Yeah, after going off all that, like maybe 3 years ago, here in my home area, we had a major windstorm, which some people took as being like a tornado. It actually like demolished an entire trailer park.
Wow.
And everyone was then relocated to our high school gym. It was late summer, but it was like the outside world, like the non-LDS persons put up their own facilities to assist.
That's great. Yeah, and that's just another example of that service. So, yeah, I appreciate you sharing those things, because asking about unity, you mentioned service, prayer, and fasting. And that all those things are outward towards other people. So looking towards others, living for others rather than living for ourselves creates unity.
Yeah, and it's the service that will bring others unto you and will also help you feel better and lighter and help with your helping resolve their issues, lifts you higher than going down the slums with them.
It does. Yeah, so this is a good reminder for all of us, and for me
Well, even when we take the sacrament, when we renew our covenants, we do renew the fact that we say that we will lift one another's burdens. So even in our sacrament prayers, we should be thinking about those things. What have I done this week? Or, what do I pledge myself for the upcoming week to do to lift one another's burdens or help somewhere.
Just like the song, "Have I Done Any Good in the World Today?"
Right.
Yeah. Well, that's a great thought, because I love the sacrament, and I so often think about how it makes me feel personally. Yes, I get to renew that relationship with the Lord through my covenants. I get to renew my baptism covenants, and so I often think about how the peace that brings me. But I appreciate what you're sharing, because it reminds me that, even the sacrament, it's not just for us. The Lord wants us to take care of one another and to bear one another's burdens, just like the book of Mosiah, chapter 2. Great thoughts. So I think the premise of a union is that care and that effort to protect everyone and kind of be a voice for everyone. In a business setting, there's positives and negatives there, but appreciate you discussing unity and what that could look like. So, anything else that can tie together with that you've learned or talked about, or maybe what you experienced when you were trying to negotiate barriers and challenges and how you work through those?
Can't think of anything right at the moment.
I'm breathing.
No problem. Negotiation is kind of fascinating. If you get a chance, there's a lot of content on there. You can even take classes just to learn about negotiation.
Like debate classes?
What's that?
Like debate classes?
What kind of classes are those?
Debate?
Oh, debate, yeah. Debate classes would do it, yep. Learning how to have that dialogue, but to also the skills in, setting your expectations, setting a reservation point, setting those talking points, and then working through it. One thing you might have picked up is, even though we were just doing this negotiation exercise, because of some of the barriers and the differing points of view or the differing needs, negotiation can sometimes take a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And we see that, when you see companies on strike or, in the collective bargaining process, it'll go on for months.
Yeah.
And it's because it's hard to get to that melding point, get to that common ground. So, and I think that it makes me think about what we've talked about with unity, with our relationships or whatever. There's always differing points of view. But I like how you've brought up some of those tragedies that happen, because one of those tragedies happen, a trailer park gets wiped out, or a hurricane happens, or a tornado hits. We all suddenly get to remember what really matters, right?
And it makes us all together.
Yeah. Yep. Taking care of one another, all the things that we tend to worry about that slow things down kind of drift away really fast when we say, oh, hey, we're grateful to be alive. We want to help people. We've got people dealing with much more tragic things than I am right now.
Yeah.
It turns us outward. So,
puts things into perspective for you.
Sure does, really quickly. Yeah, really quickly. So whatever that drums up for you, I know that makes me think of a lot of areas I can improve in my efforts to be more outward and to serve better. Of course, we've got our church callings. I know I can be a better home teacher.
At least you can admit it.
I can. Yeah, I got a lot to work on there. But, of course, I can be a better husband or father. So whatever area you want to work on, whatever that might be, temple work, genealogy, whatever the Spirit's been nudging on you, working towards that unity and being a little more outward. We can be more happy if we act on those little promptings.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing. I'm grateful for you helping us tonight and reminding us of those things. Any questions about anything?
I have nothing.
Well, I can't think of anything.
Okay. Thanks for joining. I know it's the night before the holiday, but I still wanted to still hold office hour and at least get something recorded for those that couldn't make it. Definitely wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. So Maria, you're already traveling then?
Yeah, we just, like I said, we just came from a wedding, and tomorrow we're heading down further south to be with my parents.
Excellent.
So, yep, it'll be fun.
Well, that's very good. Yeah, I will be north of here. I'm going to Idaho Falls to my parents' house, and then we'll see both sets of my grandparents, hopefully.
That'll be fun. It's always fun to get with your family.
It really is. What about you, Courtney?
I'll be staying here.
Cool. Don't have to travel, huh?
Nope.
All right.
Well, that's good sometimes, Sometimes you could just stay put. Let other people come to you.
I agree.
Except for, I feel like the further west you go in Washington State, they're having snow.
Yeah, we just got snow here in Pocatello today. So.
Did you? Wow. Yeah. Well, I think the lows that we had were probably in the 50s down here. I think in Texas, in
Lucky.
the Dallas area, I think we actually got down to probably the high 30s.
Oh, and that's pretty cold for there, huh?
Yeah. It was a very welcome temperature for me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's nice to have the seasons change sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, good. Well, everybody have a good Thanksgiving. Be safe.
You too.
You too.
Talk with you next week.
All right, sounds great. Thanks for the discussion tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.